Hey guys, just making a short little update video to the tank. I found this Ludwigia recently. Got a couple pots of it. I'm going to try it out in the tank. It's really tall. I should probably trim it before planting it. I haven't done anything with it yet, just because I'm kind of a lazy slacker. This stupid sword popped back out, so I gotta put that back in. So tonight, I think I told you guys before, but I set up a little 10-gallon tank for my dad. I ended up giving him five of my regular white clouds, just to see how they do, to give him a bulletproof fish. Unfortunately, I accidentally lost two of them. I was dumping out some of the water and I accidentally emptied them into the toilet. So I was not too pleased with that. I had nothing to scoop them out with, so there was nothing I could really do. So I'm gonna go over there tomorrow and give him a few more of the regular white clouds. I still have a good amount of them, or after that I'll still have 7 or 8 of them. I did happen to give him the smaller ones, but it's okay, he don't care. I gave him a few of my cherry shrimp too, just for something different. So I'm picturing a major overhaul possibly in the future with this tank. Either that or I might get a 40 long tank. I've been thinking about it a lot, and so it's been 3 years with this tank. As many of you know, I've been talking about getting a new tank for a little while, and I was thinking about it. I might try possibly upgrading to a 40 long. It's a really cool size in my opinion, and I've always kind of really wanted one. I used to have one years ago actually, and I unfortunately had it stored improperly, so it cracked, so I never really got to get any use out of it. But I think it's a really cool size tank, you know. It's got more volume than my 33 long, and also it's a little bit taller. You know, it's kind of between the 33 long and the 55 gallon. But I don't know, I might just stick with this tank regardless, just because, I mean, it's always done well for me. Everyone I always tell, you know, I'm thinking about getting another tank, you know. I talk to my mom about it, my dad about it sometimes. My mom's like, you know, I like the tank you got. You know, my dad was telling me as he's sitting here watching it, and, you know, I like your tank. I like the way you have it set up. Yeah, and honestly, they're right. I mean, I don't technically really have to get a new tank. Thought about trying out a Sapporo 40 or 55 gallon too, but I don't really want to go that route. I would jump all over a 45 gallon frag tank if they were more common. So it's basically like the tank I have now, only it's got more depth. It's a 48 by 18 by 12, so this is 48 by 12 by 12. So basically it's 18 inches from back to front. That would be a great tank. The only thing I don't like about tanks that have more depth is they're harder to light. Like this little pansy Finnick Stingray. Pretty sure if I had a tank that was 18 inches from back to front, I'd probably have to have 2 of them. This tank, I can get away with only 1 of them. Yeah, I set up my dad's tank, not about, I don't know, about 3 weeks ago maybe. And I set him up I set them up a 10 gallon. Um, and I set them up with Moonlight White Carib Sea Sand and a Phoenix Stingray 2 fixture. It actually looks really cool. That's why I might, if I don't get another tank, I might do a major overhaul in this tank, and I might have to get some of that Moonlight White Sand. I was impressed by it. Super bright. When I acclimated the white clouds and dumped them in the tank, they actually look pretty cool in there. Granted, his tank's a little bit smaller though, than this. I would need a lot more substrate if I decided to go that route. But yeah, like I mentioned, it's been 3 years. Pretty sure it's been an anniversary that since I've had this tank. 3 years that I had set it up in March 2020. I set it up shortly after the pandemic started. What a time that was. What a time that was. I was even living in our mobile home. And actually, so I had bought the tank in February 2020, and I was kind of waiting to set it up when it got a little bit warmer. But then the pandemic happened, and everything was on lockdown, so pretty much I was going to work, and that was about it. It was the only place I was going. So to be safe, considering the situation was relatively new, I for something to do one day I set up the tank. I think that was around the end of March 2020, and there it sat for about 2-3 months, just because everything was going on. My wife got really sick with the virus and all that unpleasantries. So fish is looking a little bit weird just now. Anyways, yeah. That was such a strange time. I don't like to harp on it too much, but I feel like sometimes it's important for people to know how bad it was, or well, obviously it was bad, but how bad it can get, Remember, because we work, me and my wife both work in healthcare, so we work in a hospital, a local hospital system. We used to live in our mobile home within about less than 10 minutes from the hospital. So around this time, when COVID first, kind of went nuts in the U.S., about every half hour or so, you'd hear sirens going to the hospital, ambulances. Or I would assume they were, going to the hospital. And that was pretty freaky, because I was thinking, this is something that's like pretty uncommon. We don't, once in a while you would hear sirens, but not every half hour or so. Not every half hour or 45 minutes or every hour. And like I said, it was kind of freaky, because I had to imagine that these people were going to the hospital because of COVID. I have to make maybe another video where I talk about that. When everything went down, honestly. What a tough time it was. I still think about it. The horror of it. I feel like I got some kind of PTSD from it, essentially. So yeah, like I was mentioning in the beginning of the video, this Ludwigia looks kind of crazy. I almost feel like I have too many plants in here. Maybe not. I don't know. And I feel like it's easier. It's really hard to find low tech forefront plants or foreground plants. The only ones I have in here are these crypts, and that's the only thing I can really grow or find. I know there's dwarf sage, but I've never had success with it. Kind of like the same thing as jungle val. They're pretty much super similar to each other. Never had success with jungle val. Never had success with dwarf sage. Not sure why. Even though I can pretty much, grow everything else in here. It's low tech. We'll see if I can grow this Ludwigia though. I'm gonna have to chop it down a little bit. I actually got these from a local Myers store. If anyone in this area, in the Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois area, knows about Myers. It's basically like a Walmart, but a lot nicer. They're a little bit more expensive than Walmart, but not. They sell all the same kind of like goodies. But we shop there a lot. It's one of our favorite stores. It's one of our go-tos. But they happen to have fish tanks there, and a lot of the times they'll have plants in them. Granted, sometimes the tanks are kind of like crunk tanks. But actually, that's where I had started out getting plants from. When I first got into planted tanks, was the Myers stores, because I always had them. And for some reason, you could go like an aquarium store, or LFS, or Petco, and they didn't have crap a lot of the time. But all these Myers stores had all these plants that you could find. So I always thought that was super cool. And still, ironically, sometimes if you go to Petco, plants kind of, a lot of the time they look like junk. I actually went, where I got these swords from a while back. I think I mentioned it, but they had the swords in the same tank as goldfish. Why would you put plants in a tank with goldfish, especially if you're trying to sell them? It's just dumb. There's a view of the fish. So one of my cherry shrimp, I think, recently had babies. And I think I have another one in there. It's buried. Hey, what did we find here? They're rooting around something. What do they find? What did they find? Looks like a plant root. So some of these standard white clouds have grown a bit, gotten bigger. That one's pretty good size. I wish the colors would be a little bit more vibrant. They probably would be if a darker substrate. Alright, this video is going on 15 minutes. I think I've rambled on long enough. I'm gonna give you a few seconds of just checking out the fish some more. And with that, I'm out.